Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Um,
Today we're going to be talking about something that's
mm,
kind of, well, it can be uncomfortable.
right.
We're diving into algorithmic bias,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not just talking about the concept, we're really focusing on how it affects people of color.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like it can be
Yeah.
hidden, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like in the code.
Right.
But when you see the results, it's definitely not hidden.
No, not at all. And to really get into this, we're going deep into this article
Okay.
called 12 Reasons Why People of Color Should Fear Algorithmic Bias and How to Overcome It.
Wow. That's
It's a long title.
yeah.
But
It's an important one though, right?
it is, and it's not some far-off thing either.
No.
This bias is already messing with stuff like hiring, healthcare,
Yeah. Right. Right.
even education.
Yeah.
It's stuff we all deal with right now.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about AI, right? It's built to learn.
Right.
But what it learns from is all the data we feed it. So if that data is full of our own prejudices,
Yeah.
well, the AI doesn't know any better, right?
It just spits out
It's just, yeah.
bias results.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like, imagine, like if you were only learning history from like a really old textbook,
Yeah.
like one written like 50 years ago,
Yeah,
you'd have a pretty like messed up view of the world.
absolutely.
And that's what's happening here. But instead of a textbook, it's like an algorithm deciding who even gets a job interview based on data that's like favoring certain types of names.
Right, right.
You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that's why the article really stresses pushing for like inclusive data sets.
Yeah.
If the information that the AI learns from is actually like representative of everybody,
Yeah.
then it has like a chance to be fair.
It makes sense in theory,
Yeah.
but what I found really eye-opening were like the real-world examples of how this bias like plays out in real life.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not just,
It's just hypothetical.
it's affecting people's lives,
Yeah.
like right now.
Yeah. For example, let's talk hiring. This one really got to me.
Okay.
There are AI tools that are being used to screen resumes, but they're actually showing preference to candidates with like white-sounding names.
It's,
I mean,
it's,
how is that even possible?
it's crazy, right? It just shows you how like subtle historical bias can be.
Yeah.
Like even something as simple as a name
Right.
gets caught up in these patterns.
Wow.
And that's why like the article is pushing for like way more transparency from companies that are using these tools.
Yeah.
Basically, they need to show us how these decisions are being made
Yeah.
so that we can actually like pinpoint the bias.
It's like demanding to see the recipe if the food keeps making people sick.
Exactly. Exactly.
You need to know what's going in there.
Yeah.
Okay, another area that's troubling is criminal justice.
Mm-hmm.
The article talks about these predictive policing algorithms
Mm.
that are supposed to help prevent crime, right?
Right.
But they actually end up unfairly targeting communities of color.
And that targeting is based on,
It's based on the past, right?
yeah, you guessed it, historical crime data.
So we're using past injustices to justify future ones, which is,
It's a terrible cycle.
yeah, it's really disturbing.
Yeah. And that's why there's like this whole movement now
Yeah.
for independent audits of these systems
Yeah.
because we can't just trust that they're working the way they're supposed to.
Right.
We need experts to really get in there
Yeah.
and make sure they're not making things worse. Like
Right.
reinforcing the existing bias.
Yeah, it's like assuming your watch is right, even though it keeps making you late.
Yeah.
You need to check it to get something accurate.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what about healthcare? This article highlights how AI is being used for everything,
Oh, yeah.
from diagnoses to treatment recommendations, but it can actually lead to worse outcomes for people of color
Right.
because it doesn't consider their unique genetic or cultural factors.
And this is where, like, the call for diverse data in healthcare AI development gets really important,
Yeah. Yeah.
We need people who are actually, like, developing these tools
Yeah.
to understand the nuances
Right.
of different communities.
Right.
Otherwise, these tools could end up doing more harm than good.
Yeah. It's like trying to navigate a city with a map that's missing half the streets.
Right.
You're bound to get lost.
Yeah.
And speaking of getting lost, let's talk about facial recognition technology,
Oh, yeah.
because that seems to be going in all kinds of wrong directions.
I know. It's
Yeah.
really worrying,
Mhm.
because this technology has these like notoriously high error rates
Yeah.
for people of color.
Right.
And that's not just some technical glitch, it's having real consequences.
Yeah.
We're talking about wrongful arrests.
Right.
Just because the AI can't accurately identify someone's face
Yeah.
It just erodes trust, you know? In law enforcement, it reinforces existing biases. It's a real problem.
That's like being accused of a crime you didn't commit
Right.
because your blurry photo looks kind of like the perpetrator.
Exactly.
Except in this case, the blurry photo is the AI's fault.
Exactly, yeah.
So the article's calling for much stronger regulation of facial recognition,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to law enforcement.
I mean, the stakes are just too high to
Yeah.
let this technology just keep developing without any checks and balances.
Absolutely.
We have to be really careful about using systems that have this much potential for harm.
Yeah.
Especially to groups that are already marginalized.
Right. It all boils down to this, doesn't it? Like if the people who are designing and building these AI systems aren't representative of the people they're supposed to be serving,
Yeah.
then their own biases, even the ones they don't even realize they have, are going to end up in the technology.
Absolutely. Lack of representation in AI development is like a root cause of a lot of these problems, you know? And that's why the article really emphasizes the need for people of color to be involved at every stage from the very beginning.
Yeah.
You know, design all the way to policy decision.
It's not enough to just have a diverse team coding the algorithms.
No.
We need diverse voices in the rooms where the decisions are being made about how that technology is used.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this isn't just all doom and gloom. Right?
No.
Like the article doesn't just point out the problems.
No.
It actually offers some pretty empowering solutions for fighting back against this bias.
Yeah, that's what makes this piece so interesting. You know, it's not just a warning, it's a call to action.
Yeah, and it starts with building awareness,
Right.
like at the community level.
Yeah, grassroots action.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Okay.
What does community action even look like in this context? Like, what can people actually do?
Well, the article breaks it down into a few key areas. First, there's building these grassroots movements that are specifically focused on, like, demanding fairness in AI.
So it's about communities getting organized.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking out, making their voices heard.
Yeah, like using our collective power
Yeah.
to demand better from these companies
Right.
and institutions that are using this technology.
So it's about using our voices and our votes.
Exactly.
What else can people do?
Education's a big one, right?
Yeah.
It's about giving people knowledge about AI, about algorithmic bias, about their rights.
Because you can't fight what you don't understand, right?
Exactly. You got to break down these complicated concepts and make them understandable for everyone.
Right.
That's really important.
And that brings us to,
The next step.
yeah, what's next?
Partnerships.
Partnerships.
Yeah.
Building partnerships. It's about creating a united front,
Okay.
working with, advocacy groups, nonprofits,
Yeah.
ethical tech startups, anyone who's committed to fighting algorithmic bias. Yeah, it's like that old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly.
We need to pool our resources and our expertise and our passion to make a real impact.
Absolutely. And one of the coolest ideas the article talks about is using technology to fight back against biased technology.
Yeah. Wait, so fight fire with fire?
Kinda, yeah. Tell me more. So there's actually software being developed specifically for like algorithmic auditing. It's designed to identify and even try to fix bias within these AI systems.
So it's like having a digital detective
Yeah,
that
exactly.
can sniff out bias and expose it.
Exactly.
So it's not all hopeless.
No.
There's a
No.
lot we can do.
Definitely.
But it all starts with being aware.
Awareness is key.
We need to understand the problem before we can start to fix it.
Exactly. And that's what makes these deep dives so important, you know?
Yeah.
We're not just like skimming the surface. We're
Yeah.
really digging deep, exploring the solutions,
Yeah.
and hopefully inspiring action.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, let's recap what we've learned.
Okay.
We've established that algorithmic bias is a big problem, and it's already impacting people's lives, sometimes in really harmful ways, and people of color are being hit the hardest.
Yeah, and we've seen how this bias shows up everywhere, you know, like hiring, criminal justice, healthcare, facial recognition.
Yeah, it's not just a problem in one sector. It's something we need to be aware of everywhere.
Absolutely.
But here's the good news. We're not powerless.
No, we're not.
We can fight back.
We can.
We can demand better from the companies and institutions using this technology.
Yes.
And we can support the organizations that are working to make AI more fair
Yeah,
and equitable for everyone.
exactly.
I love
So that's a good place to start, right?
Yeah.
It's a good foundation.
Okay.
So let's take a break and then we'll come back
Sounds good.
and talk more about what we can do to tackle this problem.
All right. See you in a bit.
See you later. It's not just about avoiding harm, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the article brings up the question of, like, who actually benefits
Right?
from these AI advancements.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not enough to just avoid the bias, right?
Right.
We also need to make sure that everybody has equal access to the benefits that AI could bring.
Exactly, like the article talks about this warning.
Okay.
If we don't actually work towards equity, these AI innovations might only end up helping the people who are already privileged.
Right.
And that just makes the gap between people even bigger.
Yeah, it's like AI could make things better for some people,
Yeah.
while other people get left behind.
Exactly.
That's not progress at all.
No, it's not. And that's why the article talks about this idea of
Yeah.
equitable distribution of AI technology.
Oh, I love that.
Right. So it's about making sure that the benefits of AI actually reach the people who need it most.
Right.
And that it's used to, like, fix some of the systemic issues that we've been dealing with for so long.
Yeah, I love that concept.
AI as a tool for good, not just for making money or, personal gain.
Exactly.
It really makes you think about how tech should be used to help everyone, not just a few.
Exactly. And speaking of using technology responsibly,
Yeah?
another big challenge the article talks about is accountability.
Oh, yeah, that whole black box problem.
Right.
It's really hard to challenge bias when you don't even know how the AI is making decisions.
It's like a mystery, you know?
It is.
These AI models could be so complex,
Yeah.
and it's hard to tell what's going on inside,
Right.
making it really tough to figure out where the bias is coming from and how to fix it.
It's like trying to debug code written in a language you don't even understand.
Exactly.
So how do we open up that black box and make things more transparent?
Well, the article suggests like a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
First, it calls for more open-source AI tools.
Okay. So
Yeah.
making the code itself more accessible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So researchers and developers can actually see how these algorithms work.
Okay, makes sense. What's
Yeah.
the second prong? Well, the article also pushes for, like, legislation
Okay.
requiring what it calls explainability and accountability in AI systems.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It means companies using AI would have to explain how their systems work and be held responsible if those systems end up being discriminatory.
So it's about having laws that forced companies to be more transparent
Right.
and accountable for the AI they're using.
Exactly. And if we can understand how these systems work,
Yeah.
we can better identify and challenge the bias and hold those developers accountable for creating fair AI.
It seems like transparency is key here.
Absolutely.
The more we can understand these algorithms,
Yeah.
the better equipped we'll be to make sure they're being used ethically and responsibly.
Exactly. And that's where the article's focus on community action comes in.
Right.
It's not enough to just rely on policymakers or tech companies to fix these issues.
Right.
We need communities to step up,
Right.
organize, advocate for their rights, and demand better from the technology that's shaping their lives.
It's a good reminder that we all have a role to play
We do.
in creating a future where AI is actually a force for good.
Exactly. And that brings us back to those 12 reasons
Right.
why people of color should fear algorithmic bias.
Yeah.
It's not meant to scare people, but to make them aware and encourage them to take action.
It's a call to action, not a reason to give up.
Precisely. And the article actually gives concrete steps
Okay.
that individuals and communities can take to fight back against this bias and make sure that AI serves everyone fairly.
Okay, so what are those steps? Because this is where it can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about the problems,
Right.
but what can people actually do?
Well, the article breaks it down into 5 key actions.
Okay.
The first one is building those grassroots movements we talked
Okay,
about. So
yeah.
organizing within communities to demand fair AI policies
Yeah.
and push for more transparency and accountability.
So strength in numbers, right?
Exactly. Collective action is key.
What else?
Second, education and empowerment. Okay.
So hosting workshops, events, creating resources to teach people about AI algorithmic bias and their rights.
Yeah.
The more people understand about these issues, the better they'll be able to advocate for change.
It's about making AI less mysterious
Yeah,
and giving people the tools they need to understand how it's affecting their lives.
exactly. What else?
What's next?
Third, partnering with allies.
Okay.
So working with advocacy groups, nonprofits, ethical tech startups, anyone working to fight algorithmic bias.
So we're talking about building coalitions,
Yeah.
amplifying our voices, creating a united front.
Exactly. Working together towards a common goal.
I like it. What else is on the list?
Fourth, demanding representation.
Okay.
So advocating for more diversity
Yeah.
in AI research development and policy making.
Yeah, making sure that the people creating and governing AI actually reflect the diversity of the communities it impacts.
Exactly. If you're not at the table.
Here on the menu, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
finally, leveraging technology itself.
So using existing tools and platforms designed to identify and fix bias in AI systems.
Like that algorithmic auditing software we talked about.
Exactly. It's about using tech to fight back against biased tech.
So there are tools and resources out there. We're not starting from scratch.
Not at all, and that's what makes this article so inspiring.
Yeah.
It gives us a roadmap for action.
Right.
A way to move from just being aware to actually making a difference.
It reminds us that we're not just passive bystanders in this whole tech revolution.
No, we're not.
We have the power to shape the future.
We do.
And we can use that power to make sure that AI serves everyone equally.
And that future starts with each of us taking action, asking questions, and demanding better from the technology that's shaping our world.
Okay, so we've really covered a lot in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
So where do we go from here?
I think the most important thing to remember is that this algorithmic bias, especially how it affects people of color, is a real danger, like right now.
Yeah, it's not just something we might have to worry about in the future.
No, exactly.
It's already happening.
It is, and it's having real consequences.
Yeah, we've seen how it pops up in so many parts of our lives.
Right.
From getting a job or a loan to healthcare, and even how we interact with law enforcement.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's like this hidden force that's shaping things in ways we don't even realize.
And that's the scary part, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But the good news is we're not totally helpless.
No, we're not.
We don't just have to accept this.
Right.
We can fight back.
We can.
We can demand better.
Exactly.
So how do we go from understanding this problem to actually doing something?
Well, the article gives us some ideas.
Okay.
And it starts with each of us taking responsibility.
Okay, what does that look like?
Well, we can educate ourselves, look at our own biases,
Yep.
and be more mindful about the technology we're using.
So like thinking about the algorithms we see every day.
Exactly, like on social media or when we're shopping online,
Yeah.
even the news we read.
Right. Are we getting a skewed view because of these algorithms?
That's the question we need to ask ourselves.
So beyond what we can do as individuals,
Mm-hmm.
what about bigger changes?
Well, we need to push for system-wide change.
Yeah.
We can support groups that are working to make AI more fair.
Right.
And we need stronger rules and regulations.
Right. And hold companies accountable.
Exactly. And I think one of the most important things
Yeah.
is to listen to the people who are most affected by this bias.
Right. The communities that are being hurt.
Yeah, we need to amplify their voices, learn from what they're going through.
And work together to make things better for everyone.
Exactly. This deep dive has really been eye-opening for me.
Yeah, me too. It's made me realize how widespread this problem is.
It is.
And how crucial it is to be aware of it.
I think the main thing to remember is that technology is a tool.
Right.
It can be used for good or bad.
Yeah.
And the choices we make today are going to determine what the future looks like.
So we have a responsibility to make the right choices.
We do. We have to demand better from the technology that's shaping our world.
And work together
Absolutely.
to make sure that AI is used to help people,
Yes.
not hurt them.
And I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
The next time you see an algorithm in action, ask yourself, whose voice is missing?
That's a great point.
Whose perspective isn't being represented?
Because if we want algorithmic fairness, we need a fairer society for everyone.
Exactly. It's a fight worth fighting.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.